Deep below the surface of a distant colony, miners stumble on an ancient alien life form whose strange biology and glowing patterns hide secrets beyond imagination. When one miner is caught and seemingly killed, his twin brother refuses to accept it. Together with a team, they fight to rescue him from an alien world where biology is a living weapon. Meanwhile, alien scientists study the human prisoner and discover that human DNA holds a built-in combat system, a deadly and powerful set of survival skills. This discovery challenges everything they know about life, war, and what it means to be alive. The story is intense and emotional, filled with danger, mystery, and moments of hope. It explores how violence and healing can come from the same source, and how two very different species learn to understand each other under the pressure of survival. The stakes are high, with lives and entire ecosystems hanging in the balance. The cold metal walls of Shaft 7 groaned under the weight of the planet above. Tomas Rasque ran his gloved hand over the rough stone, feeling a strange vibration beneath the surface. 20 kilometers underground, the air was stale and thick with dust. His scanner beeped erratically, showing temperatures far higher than normal, 40 degrees above baseline. Tomas frowned, the lines on his face deepening with worry. "Diego, you reading this?" Tomas whispered into his helmet comm. His twin brother's voice crackled back from the surface medical station. "Your thermals are wild. Maybe interference from the borer?" "No. Something's wrong," Tomas muttered, stepping back from the glowing wall. Patterns of faint bioluminescence pulsed beneath the rock, like neural activity dancing just out of reach. The fusion borer's roar filled the tunnel, tearing into the stone like paper. Tomas's heart hammered as he watched a flash of blue light from the wall, revealing a vast cavity beyond, filled with strange structures that pulsed with living light. Suddenly, the borer lurched forward without command. Tomas shut it down. Diego's voice was sharp with panic. "No control," came the reply from the control room. "Keep drilling. We're behind schedule." The fusion beam sliced deeper and Tomas felt the rock shudder. Then a blast of frozen air erupted, sweeping down the tunnel like a storm. The borer operator was caught in the wave, his scream cut short as his body froze solid, blood crystallizing in his veins. Tomas dove aside as ice spread across the floor. "Contact. Hostiles," Tomas shouted. The tunnel walls shimmered with flowing light and strange figures moving through cracks too small for any solid being. They were Umbrith, translucent creatures with liquid bodies, their skin glowing with strange patterns that pulsed like living circuits. Tomas's training took over. "Fall back to checkpoint 3. Seal the blast doors." But the ice blocked some emergency exits, and the blast doors delayed by safety timers. He pressed his hands to the override panel, fingers trembling as thermal pulses hammered his suit. Ice spread across his arm and chest, cold stabbing deep beneath his skin. "Diego, pull my bio signs." Tomas barked. His twin's voice rushed in, heart rate spiking. 116 and climbing. The Umbrith stopped advancing, light patterns shifting to something almost like a question. A larger one approached, its glowing skin a tapestry of complex codes. Tomas locked eyes with it through his cracked visor. This wasn't just an enemy, it was something ancient, something that had lived here long before humans arrived. The ice spread, numbing Tomas's limbs. Blood dripped from his nose as pressure crashed through his body. Then, just as the final activation sequence sealed the blast door, trapping him inside with the creatures, darkness claimed him. Topside, Diego stared at the flat line on his screen, his heart sinking as alarms screamed. Tomas's vital signs vanished, heart, oxygen, brain activity, all gone. But Diego refused to believe his brother was truly dead. Something in the data told him otherwise. The way the cardiac arrest started and stopped didn't match hypothermic shock. It looked deliberate, like induced hibernation. He wiped sweat from his brow as survivors staggered into triage. Miners with burns, frozen bodies, and haunted eyes. Sergeant Okonkwo, their security officer, slumped at the bar with scars fresh and deep. Diego pulled her aside, showing her the strange data. "My brother's alive." His body was shutting down on purpose, not dying. Okonkwo's skeptical gaze softened. "You want to find him? We'll need more than hope." Together with veteran miner Wang and engineer Maria Sandoval, Diego formed a team. They gathered mining charges, medical gear, and security codes. The tunnels were sealed, but they knew secret natural caverns connected deep below, hidden paths into the alien world. Far below, in a glowing chamber, the Keeper of Patterns studied Tomas's unconscious form. The Umbrith scientist was fascinated and horrified in equal measure. The human's biology was a battlefield and a healing field all at once. His blood churned with microscopic warriors, cells producing armies to fight disease or injury. Damage triggered healing, threats triggered deadly aggression. His single heart surged output far beyond reason, burning energy like a star. This creature is a weapon, she thought, scanning the genetic code. But also a healer. Tomas's body flickered with combat protocols, automatic, brutal, and precise. His mind rewired itself under stress, mapping escape routes, calculating attacks before they happened. The Keeper of Patterns pulsed distress signals to her assistant, Weaver of Futures. How can such a being exist naturally? Yet Tomas did not attack. Instead, he tried to communicate using crude light patterns, mimicking their glowing language. The Keeper's heart pulsed in strange rhythms as she watched. He drew maps of the tunnels, the alien creatures, and the barriers that trapped them. Maybe, she thought, destruction and creation were two sides of the same coin for humans. Back on the surface, Diego's team made their preparations. Shaped mining charges set with precision to avoid collapse. Emergency oxygen tanks rigged to create incendiaries if needed. They moved fast, quietly, knowing the dangers ahead. Every step deeper meant entering the home of the Umbreth, beings who saw humans as invaders. Remember, Diego warned, we're not just fighting for Tomas. We're fighting to understand. Okunquo's suppressive foam guns would immobilize, not kill. Sandoval studied the alien patterns, recognizing syntax in their glowing pulses. Pavel Vilov grunted, checking his laser cutter. They were defending themselves. We break in, we find Tomas, we get out. The team descended into the alien tunnels, their lights reflecting on smooth walls curved in impossible spirals. Thermal vents glowed softly, warming the strange ecosystem. The Umbreth appeared, some fleeing, others flashing warnings. Only when humans pressed on did they respond with deadly thermal blasts, turning air to ice in deadly beams. Tomas's heartbeat echoed faintly on Diego's scanner. He's alive, Diego whispered. In hibernation but alive. As the humans fought through alien warriors and healed their own, Tomas's eyes snapped open in the chamber. His mind was slow, fogged by stasis, but sharp with 3 days of study. He knew the Keeper of Patterns, she was not an enemy. Big one, he said weakly, pointing to her. Friendly. The firefight erupted again, heat and cold clashing in a deadly dance. Tomas forced himself up, signaling peace with the only tools he had, light patterns from his damaged helmet lamp. The Umbreth hesitated, confusion flashing in their glow. Tomas showed them how their fight broke vital thermal vents, how destruction threatened both species. He burned himself with a thermal blast to prove trust, pain blooming in his chest. The alien scientist moved to help, her light soothing. The fight slowed, tension stretched thin. Then Tomas removed his helmet, handing it to the Keeper. She understood instantly, the light could carry messages far brighter than her own. With careful pulses she told her people, not weapons. Tools. Choose how to use. The warriors lowered weapons, suspicion softening. Diego lifted Tomas, scanning and tending wounds. The humans and Umbreth stood together, enemies becoming unlikely allies in the deep, glowing tunnels. The glow from Tomas's helmet filled the cavern with soft light, casting long shadows over the smooth walls carved by alien hands and time. Keeper of Patterns adjusted the helmet signals, turning her bioluminescence into pulses that the Umbreth could understand, messages of peace, cooperation, and hope. Around them, wary warriors lowered their weapons but remained alert. Diego's team gathered around Tomas, lifting him carefully from the suspended stasis field. His breathing was shallow but steady, his pulse faint but present. Diego scanned Tomas's body, watching as healing accelerators worked faster than anything human medicine had achieved. The alien technology was extraordinary, but it came at a cost. Tomas's body was weak, drained from hibernation and thermal trauma. We have to move, Diego said quietly, glancing at the tense standoff. The others won't wait forever. Keeper of Patterns pulsed a calming pattern to her people. Some mirrored it with hesitant responses, others flickered uncertain warnings. The council had branded these humans as contaminants, threats to be eradicated. But here now, in this moment, the divisions blurred. Tomas opened his eyes fully and saw Diego's face. Alive, he whispered hoarsely. Better than that, Diego replied. We're going to get you out. Back in the deeper tunnels, Wang and Pavel prepared the breach charges. The natural caverns connected the abandoned shafts, but they were fragile. One wrong blast could collapse entire ecosystems, destroying the delicate balance the Umbreth depended on. We can't just blow through, Wang said, his voice rough but steady. These tunnels aren't like our mining shafts. The thermal vents run through every wall. We break them, we kill everything down here. Okonkwo nodded grimly. Precision or nothing. The team synchronized their charges and detonated with care. The tunnel walls exploded outward in a shower of dust and stone, revealing a passage faintly lit by alien bioluminescence. They moved quickly, following Tomas's faint biometrics deeper into the glowing maze. Every step was a mix of hope and danger. The Umbreth watched from shadows, their eyes reflecting flickers of light. Some attacked in waves of freezing blasts, others fled to warn their kin. Diego's team fought back with laser cutters and foam suppressors, carefully avoiding unnecessary kills. Sandival, always the scientist, scanned the alien environment with awe. "They've built these tunnels like a living machine," she said, tracing her fingers over walls that shimmered with organic light. "The thermal vents provide heat, energy, even communication." Pavel growled. "They say we're weapons. But look at this place. We're breaking their home." Meanwhile, in the alien chamber, Keeper of Patterns studied Tomas's physiology more deeply. She pulsed data streams to Weaver of Futures, who compiled intricate holographic displays of human biology. Every cell was a battlefield and a factory. Armies of microscopic warriors fought inside his blood, repairing damage instantly. His single heart pumped fiercely, able to burn its own reserves for moments of extreme power. "This is no accident," Keeper said softly. "His biology is engineered for war and healing." Weaver shivered in bioluminescent patterns. "Such systems are dangerous, but also adaptable. Could they be used for creation?" Keeper considered the paradox. Humans burned themselves for others, for survival, for connection. Their combat protocols were not just about destruction, they were tools of life. Suddenly, alarms blared across the chamber. Explosions echoed from the breach points deeper in the tunnels. More humans were coming. Diego's team pushed forward, the faint signs of Tomas growing stronger. The alien warriors' attacks intensified, beams of supercooled air and thermal blasts slicing through the air. The humans used their mining tools as shields, moving fast and precise. Okonkwo fired foam suppressors to immobilize attackers. "Keep formation. No unnecessary fire." Sandoval's scanner picked up strange signals. "They're trying to communicate, the light pulses have syntax. There's meaning in their patterns." Pavel sneered. "Meaning or not, they killed our people. We're here for Tomas." Diego nodded grimly. "We'll get him. And maybe, find a way to end this." At last they reached a massive cavern. Tomas hung suspended in a shimmering field, his body healing slowly. The Umbreth worked at alien devices, tending the thermal vents and repairing their living technology. Keeper of Patterns stood tall, glowing softly as she watched the humans enter. Her people's council had condemned cooperation, but the thermal crisis was real. Without repair, vital breeding grounds would fail. The standoff was tense. Tomas, still weak, gestured toward Keeper, signaling peace. Diego's heart pounded. This moment could decide their future. Keeper modulated her light, sending a simple message: alive. Healing. Cooperation. The humans lowered their weapons slightly. Tomas reached out, drawing crude diagrams of the tunnels and thermal systems. He showed how to fix the damage, how to build together. Suddenly, a wave of thermal blasts hit Tomas, ice spreading across his suit. He gritted his teeth, burning his own biology to resist. The alien warriors hesitated, confused by his self-sacrifice. Keeper of Patterns pulsed emergency healing signals, moving to help. Diego rushed forward with warming packs and injectors, stabilizing Tomas. This is what they fear, Keeper thought. Not weapons, but this fierce will to survive and protect. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of alien light. Tomas pulled off his helmet and handed it to Keeper. She understood immediately. The helmet's light could carry messages far beyond her own. She connected it, amplifying her bioluminescence into clear signals. The warrior's suspicion melted into cautious acceptance. "We are not weapons," Keeper signaled. "We are tools. We choose how to use." As the humans and Umbreth prepared to leave, Keeper pressed a small crystal into Diego's hand. It pulsed softly with recorded data, coordinates, thermal specs, a request for exchange and understanding. Diego looked at Tomas, then back at the alien scientist. A fragile peace was beginning. Outside, the colonial administration was already sealing the breach. Reports classified. Orders to forget. But the Raskay twins were stubborn. They had made contact. And that contact would change everything. The cold air of the abandoned tunnels wrapped around Diego and his team as they prepared for the long journey back to the surface. Tomas rested between Diego and Wang, still weak but alive, his eyes flickering with faint life beneath swollen lids. The small crystal keeper of patterns had given Diego pulsed gently in his palm, a message, a promise, and a key to understanding. Outside, the colony was a hive of whispered rumors and hidden fears. The official story was already taking shape. Mining accident, gas explosion, tragic but ordinary. Colonial administration's orders were clear: seal the breach, erase all records, move on. But Diego and Tomas both knew the truth was far more dangerous. Diego fingered the crystal again. The recorded light patterns contained schematics, coordinates, and what felt like an invitation. An invitation to cooperation, but also a warning. The Umbretha's thermal vent systems were fragile and vital. Without repair, entire ecosystems would collapse. It was more than survival, it was balance. In the weeks that followed, Tomas led a small team deep into the tunnels once more, this time not as an intruder but as a bridge. His helmet was modified to mimic Umbreth light patterns, and he communicated slowly but clearly with Keeper of Patterns, whose English had improved with effort and time. Their work was careful, delicate. Tomas and the Umbreth engineers integrated human structural supports with alien thermal conduits. The tunnels hummed with a new rhythm, the pulse of two species learning to live together. Diego stayed close, carrying medical supplies for both humans and Umbreth, healing wounds that went beyond flesh, wounds of fear and misunderstanding. Okonkwo provided security, her sharp eyes scanning shadows for threats from either side. The colony's council raged behind closed doors. Many saw this cooperation as dangerous, a threat to colonial order. But pragmatism prevailed. The thermal crisis could not be ignored. "We have to try," Tomas said firmly to Diego one evening as they watched engineers argue over load-bearing calculations. Humans with their rigid, practical designs. Umbreth with their flowing, organic structures. Two worlds blending into one. Diego smiled, exhaustion in his eyes. "Still think we're weapons?" Tomas shook his head. "We're tools. Tools that build or break depending on how we're used." Keeper of Patterns joined them, her glowing patterns shifting to amusement and approval. "When you burn yourselves for others, that is not just violence. That is connection. That is life." The three stood together in the shared work zone, watching their species pass by, human day shift workers and Umbreth night engineers exchanging greetings in broken English and light speech. But peace was fragile. The scars Tomas bore on his chest ached with the humid air, reminders of the violence that birthed this fragile alliance. The combat protocols built into human DNA were still there, deep and powerful, but context had changed. Now those instincts protected, healed, and built. The colony prepared for further exploration of the southern caverns, where even more delicate thermal systems waited. Tomas promised careful work. The Keeper of Patterns called it a new dawn and a fragile bridge. Diego thought of the battles, the losses, the moments when it felt like all might be lost. But now they had something stronger, a shared purpose. At night, Diego and Tomas sat beneath the stars, the twin moons casting pale light over the colony. Tomas traced lines in the dust, drawing maps of tunnels, creatures, and barriers. His voice was soft. "We carry the worst and best of war inside us," he said. "It makes us dangerous, yes, but it also makes us survivors." Diego nodded. "The Umbreth saw only weapons at first, but we showed them tools. Tools for healing, for building, for connection." Tomas smiled faintly. The hardest battles are not fought with weapons but with trust. Deep below, in the glowing chambers, Keeper of Patterns watched the colony's progress. The council remained divided, fearful, suspicious, and angry at her defiance. But she stood firm. "Not all first contacts must be disasters," she pulsed softly. "We only need translators. And those willing to stand in the middle." Her light shifted as the Umbreth engineers worked alongside humans, creating new thermal exchange systems that powered both species' needs. The ancient tunnels hummed with life again, alive, shared, and fragile. The story of two worlds began here, in the depths where darkness met light, where warriors became builders, and where survival meant more than destruction. Tomas looked at Diego, then at Keeper of Patterns. "Next week we breach the southern caverns," Keeper said, her voice steady. "New thermal systems, very delicate." "We'll be careful," Tomas promised. They stood side by side, two humans and one Umbreth, watching their peoples work together in the deep, glowing tunnels. The scars on Tomas's chest throbbed with quiet pain, a reminder that some bridges require sacrifice. But those bridges held. The southern caverns lay beyond the colony's deepest tunnels, a web of fragile passages crisscrossing ancient thermal vents vital to the Umbretha's survival. Tomas, Diego, keeper of patterns, and the joint team prepared carefully. The air was thick with heat and bioluminescent light, shimmering off walls carved by time and alien hands. Tomas checked his gear, feeling the familiar weight of his medical pack and reinforced suit. The scars on his chest tingled, a quiet reminder of past battles and the cost of trust. Diego stood beside him, fingers tightening around the injector vial. "We're ready," Diego said softly. Keeper of Patterns shifted her glowing patterns in a gesture of encouragement. The team moved forward, crossing into the sacred zone of the Umbreth. The tunnels here were alive in a way Tomas hadn't expected. The walls pulsed with subtle vibrations and thermal vents hissed softly, releasing warmth that sustained an ecosystem as delicate as glass. Every step had to be measured, every charge carefully placed to avoid collapse. "This place breathes," Sandival whispered, awed as she mapped the structures with her scanner. Suddenly, an alarm pulsed through the team's comms. Umbreth warriors appeared, moving swiftly, their glowing forms a blur. But these were not the attackers of past battles. Their patterns were complex, communicating warnings, questions, and even hesitation. Tomas raised his hand, sending light pulses from his helmet in return, a crude but earnest greeting. Keeper mirrored the signals, translating between species with increasing fluency. The warriors paused. Negotiations began in light and sound, slow, fragile, but real. Tomas showed the Umbreth the plans for reinforcement, how human structural supports could stabilize the vents without harming the natural flow of heat. Keeper explained the importance of maintaining balance. Hours passed as the two species worked together, the tension easing. Diego tended to wounded workers, human and Umbreth alike, bridging gaps with steady hands and shared knowledge.